What's up everybody, welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony, let's jump in. Okay, first up guys, let's talk about the Chinese economy. We have speculated for some time that due to the slowdown caused by the government tightening of the property sector and the wider Evergrande triggered crisis in the Chinese housing sector, by the time China moved into the fourth quarter of this year, in order to maintain growth rates at politically acceptable levels, the government would either need to increase infrastructure development spending or loosen its grip on the property sector, or some combination of both. Now, right on schedule, it appears that the government is preparing for a big infrastructure spend. State media reports that on Wednesday, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang chaired a special meeting of the State Council, China's cabinet, which issued instructions to local governments to, quote, have more construction projects come online by the beginning of next year, end quote. On the same day, the state-run Economic Information Daily reported that China is likely to launch more infrastructure projects to, quote, connect cities and spur industrial innovation, end quote. The publication expressed that in the southwest, this is the area that includes places like Sichuan, Chongqing and others, policymakers are looking to improve railway networks and build new hydro projects. And in Beijing and Shanghai, according to the article, major transportation mega projects are soon to be announced, including a new high-speed rail line from Shanghai to the poor province of Anhui. As we've discussed in previous episodes, many of these new projects are actually old projects that were shelved for being unproductive investments. But since high growth targets demand construction, these projects have been pulled off the shelf and will be implemented. So expect debt to increase faster than debt servicing capacity as we move into 2022. Now, with the current property crackdown and its flow-on effects for land sales, a critical source of revenue for local governments, who typically have to foot a large part of the bill when it comes to building infrastructure, the question arises, how will this be paid for? Well, in a piece of brilliant journalism this week, Chinese financial media outlet Tycoon Media published an investigative report that found that because cash-strapped property firms have become reluctant to bid for land, local government financing vehicles have stepped in to help local governments with their revenue shortfalls. The report found that from July to November, local government financing vehicles brought over 13% of land parcels by value across the country, almost triple the percentage from the previous 6 months. Needless to say, this is not sustainable, and in the next episode of China Update, which is coming out this Saturday, I'm going to do a deep dive into how land sales, the property tax, and the housing crisis are all connected to China's unsustainable growth model. This is critical to understanding China's economy. On December 9th through 10th, 2021, US President Joe Biden will host a virtual summit for leaders from government, civil society, and the private sector called the Summit for Democracy. According to the US State Department, the summit will focus on, quote, challenges and opportunities facing democracies, and will provide a platform for leaders to announce both individual and collective commitments, reforms, and initiatives to defend democracy and human rights at home and abroad. Now, the summit has not received too much media attention in the Anglophone world. However, in China in recent days, state media has launched a media blitz domestically with content critical of the event. In fact, several Chinese policy analysts here have only wanted to discuss the Democracy Summit with me over the last week or so. On Monday, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson called the Summit for Democracy a, quote, dangerous move to rekindle the Cold War, end quote, and expressed the US as, quote, trying to weaponize democracy to use it as a tool to advance its geostrategic agenda. It is advocating its hegemony under the guise of democracy. End quote. The same day, state-run Xinhua Media ran an article expressing, quote, the convention's stated goal is to set forth an agenda for democratic renewal, yet it is far from being democratic. Under the guise of democracy, the United States is essentially promoting anti-democracy. End quote. Over the weekend, the Chinese and Russian ambassadors to the United States co-authored an article in which they asserted that the Democracy Summit would, quote, stoke up ideological confrontation and a rift in the world, creating dividing lines, end quote, and that the event pushed a, quote, Cold War mentality, end quote. One of the reasons why Beijing is not particularly happy with the US-led event is that Taiwan received and accepted an invitation to attend. In the last episode of China Update, we discussed the arrest of Macau casino kingpin Alvin Chau and what it could mean for the future of the economy of the Macau Special Administrative Region. Since that video 2 days ago, there have been a few new developments that we need to touch on quickly. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that like button. It's the only way a small channel like this can be seen by more people. And if you're enjoying the analysis and you want more of it, maybe consider subscribing. I release 3 of these a week. You'll have the most up-to-date analysis if you hit that bell notification. Okay, plug over back into it. State media coverage has pushed a message that this arrest is a sign of an upcoming crackdown on gambling in Macau and that the casino junket industry is in for a lot of pain. If so, this will have a huge impact on Macau's economy, as gambling makes up 40% of Macau's GDP. And Goldman Sachs estimates that around 70% of Macau's VIP gambling volume is related to junkets, and 1/3 of VIP junket revenue goes through Alvin Chau's Hong Kong-listed Sun City Group. With the news of his arrest, that very company, Sun City Group Holdings Limited, plunged 48%. Alvin Chau was placed in compulsory detention with 4 other suspects over the alleged offences, which are punishable by up to 12 years in prison, according to Macau's Public Prosecutions Office. As I said in the previous episode, in a research note published over the weekend, JP Morgan analysts described the arrest as quote-unquote really bad for the junket industry of Macau. Next up, China and Africa. On Monday, Beijing hosted its so-called 8th Ministerial Conference of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. Demonstrating its importance to top policy makers in Beijing, General Secretary Xi Jinping himself was the keynote speaker at the event. During his speech, Xi made 4 proposals to support, quote, building a China-Africa community with a shared future in the new era, end quote. These were, first, fighting COVID with solidarity, second, deepening practical cooperation, third, promoting green development, and fourth, upholding equality and justice. Just before the conference, the State Council published a white paper called, quote, China and Africa in the New Era, a Partnership of Equals, end quote. State media reports that the white paper is, quote, designed to document the successes of China-Africa cooperation in the new era and offer a perspective on future cooperation between the two sides. Many African nations have an important part to play in China's global ambitions, including within Xi Jinping's flagship foreign policy initiative, the Belt and Road Initiative. In particular, Beijing has vast interests ranging from a military base to mega infrastructure projects in the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea. While Beijing has maintained fairly positive relations with the governments of many African states for years, its interactions have not been without controversy, and this week is no exception. For example, it was recently reported that Uganda is currently seeking to amend a loan agreement it signed with China in 2015 to ensure the government doesn't lose control of the nation's only international airport. And last up, guys, let's discuss a few major military developments with Quad nations. The UK-based Japanese-owned Financial Times reports that Japan's cabinet has signed off on a $6.8 billion package of extra defense spending due to concerns it has towards China. The move takes Japan's defense spending to its highest level in decades as a share of national income. The government reports that Japan will bring forward purchases of patrol aircraft and surface-to-air missiles from next year's budget. Japanese media outlet Nikkei Asia also reports this week that Prime Minister Kishida ordered a review of Japan's medium-term defense program as well as its national security and defense guidelines. The Prime Minister expressed that Japan, quote, will not rule out options such as having enemy-based strike capabilities. And lastly, the US-based Wall Street Journal is reporting this week that a Pentagon review of military resources worldwide, quote, plans improvements to bases in Guam and Australia to counter China, end quote, but contains no major reshuffling of forces. Hey guys, I'd love to hear what you thought about some of the updates we covered in today's episode, so throw your comments below. Always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.